Hey everyone, and welcome to the Real Birding Podcast, the show where we crack open the world of birding and talk about our own birding adventures. I'm Will Keller, coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina.
And I'm Caleb Putnam in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
All right, first up, we've got the bird quiz. Last week, we played you the sound of a white-breasted nuthatch, and two people submitted their answers, and both of them were correct. We're going to give a shout out to Kyle Irwin for getting that right. Good job, Kyle. All right, this week we've got a different bird. We're going to play it here. If you think you know what this bird is, drop the name of the bird in the comments of this video for a shout out next week. All right, let's hear it. Even if you don't recognize that song, you probably already know the name of this bird from childhood storybooks and whatnot. So that's a little bit of a hint. Otherwise, we got a lot to get into. Very exciting show this week. Let's do it. All right, everybody, we've got a real fun treat for you. We've got our first interview. We've been thinking about doing interviews for a long time, and we've got a really fun guest. I'm really excited. Our guest today is a birder, a photographer, a conservationist, a landscape designer, and an online influencer. You all know him as Jonny Nature, but this is Jonathon Macri. Welcome to the show, Jonathon.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
For sure.
Very excited to have you. As Will already knows, but the listeners will not. Jonathon is actually a good buddy of both of us and a colleague. In fact, Will has already been working with him in the past. And Jonathon and I are just starting to work together. And maybe we can take some tips from his successful social media enterprises. It's kind of hoping to osmose that a little bit.
Yeah, we're kind of all in this field now of kind of mixing our own passions with creating online content, but nobody does it quite as well as you, John. Your content is so inspiring and so impressive.
I definitely appreciate it. And, it just stems from obviously just having your heart in it and just going back to, as we all have, just such a love for birds, and just real quick of how it unfolded into, really trying to push this message. And then the conservation of habitats and ecosystems is obviously everybody on here is a birder, and we love birds at the core. And I think what really comes with that pure love is just recognizing what birds really need and what is happening just in the world, and the impact just even one person can make. So like a lot of even what I think we're all trying to do is just spread awareness, knowledge, and inspiration, and really just the main core of even my message and what I'm trying to do online and just in everything is just trying to heal this planet and get the message out for people to really start caring. I think birds are very important because they're like the first thing that kind of gets nature into people's hearts, and it's just amazing.
Was that true for you? Was your kind of gateway drug into the natural world, birds and birding?
Always. I mean, I was the birder when I was young, and I remember maybe it was like 6 years ago when I came across the Audubon study. I think it was like we've lost 3 billion birds since 1970. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but that was like my first like whoa wake up call. Like, what does that mean? And then that led me deep into that. Like, well, what is causing birds to decline? Obviously, there's many reasons, but I think at the core of it, truly, is just we're destroying the land, the ecosystems, and everything. And I think it's all connected in that. And I'm still learning, but that's really where this root work is rooted in.
Yeah, totally. And Caleb, you've been doing this for a lot longer than both of us. You know more than anybody else the main causes of that. Yeah, almost 50% decline in birds since 1970. The main contributing factor to that is habitat decline.
And you're right, and it's also death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? I mean, we've got mortality from things like cats and glass and tall communications towers and lights in the night sky. And so I think it can really be an intimidating thing to try to understand how we can, fix this, and particularly when you need the public support. And so I think that's one of the things that really jumped out at me, John, is you are really trying to enable action in the community and really come at it with a really passionate emotional message that really resonates with people deep in their soul. You say, and I want to actually touch on that. You are a big proponent of healing nature in order to heal people's souls. So can you expound on that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think just as we can see, we've been so removed from just our natural way of living all around. Like most people don't even know 5 different birds at all. And it's just this pure disconnection completely. And you're just living in this world that you think is so real, but really lost touch with the living world, the world that even makes the world that we think so important exist. And like when you just even step outside, any of my friends who have just been around or aren't really, birders as much, but we go out in nature and you just see it's just this final moment of like, oh, like finally I feel kind of connected to something that feels very true within me. And I think it's just so important, especially in this time things are getting intense. Like when you just go out in nature, not even with the intention to have to know everything or know all the species, but just take a moment to just get out in the real world and just sit with yourself for a second, I think does deep wonders. And even going back to what you said with all of the birds and all of these issues, which there are, that is why I think habitat and planting natives is so important, because that's like also the gateway. Because then it's like you really see just what planting native plants does, and it opens the void for everything else. And like you firsthand plant a native ecosystem in your front yard, you're gonna see that heal nature. But that whole process of watching that, just naturally, you're gonna heal yourself too. And it's like, damn, I feel connected finally, and it's so important. My goodness.
Yeah. Dude, can I say also, I was listening to the Prairie Farm podcast. I don't know if you guys have checked that out,
I
but
have. I like them.
those guys are awesome. And they were pointing out that when you take people that aren't necessarily conservationists or naturalists and you take them into specifically old growth or restored habitat where you see what the habitat could have looked like, sort of like pre-development,
Yeah.
people use words like, oh my gosh, it feels like a church or a cathedral. This feels so old. This is amazing. And they're using words that they probably wouldn't be able to say, I'm having a spiritual experience right now. But what do we mean when we say church and cathedral? This is spiritual.
Literally.
This is touching something very deep and ancient in our souls. And it's kind of
Literally.
undeniable, but people don't know it because there's so little
No.
of that habitat anymore.
I know. And it's like when we're just living on the land too, destroying everything, feeding that disconnection, it's just like further us, which it can do the other way as well. But yeah, I mean, we have to have a basically ecological awakening where we all just wake up and see and understand. Like, my goodness.
That's really good. I think for people like myself, I've been like in a science background. I tend to bring a little bit of a technical approach when I'm talking to the public, but I have to say I really admire the way that you can make a more personal, connected, emotional plea to folks. One thing I have to say, I'm in my 40s. You guys are both in your 20s. There's this weird thing for me about when you're trying to do what I just said, but you're doing it through a screen, through a social media app. I have a little disconnect in my head where I think it's got to be so much harder to do that through the internet versus if you could have the people in person and be able to have that personal connection with them. Do you have any perspectives on that? Because you're very successful. I mean, you have 124,000 followers on Instagram. You're doing really great at it, and it seems to be really resonating. But is that harder than doing it in person?
I wouldn't say it's harder, but it's definitely different. And I think the in person, of course, is a lot more real. And I just think the first in person I've had is just naturally a lot of the people I'm around and my friends. Because also, I used to cut hair for a very long time, for like 6 years, and that just naturally I was in conversation with a lot of people, and over time you develop this just relationship. Some became closer friends, and we go out in nature, and I think just showing them nature, because a lot of my friends never even been out in nature, and seeing that connection and how they connect, I learn a lot from. And then even going deeper, I think the personal with working with a lot of homeowners and some who understand native ecosystems and some who have no idea and are just inspired and they want to help, and seeing them slowly connect and just having those interactions. And then also, well, actually I'll wait for that because I'll talk about my land and maybe what's going to happen there, but we'll get into that. But
actually,
yes.
I think that's a great segue. Why don't we
Okay.
ask directly about
Well,
your
yeah.
land? Because
Well,
actually,
it's-
I have to say I don't know what
Yeah.
kind of land you have. Do you, Will?
I've heard a little bit about this, but
Oh,
yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so exciting. So obviously, if you followed me and know a majority of my account has been built in my preserve, which is a 1 acre sanctuary, which basically I've done all of this work to learn so much for the last 7 years. It's kind of, I think it was the 7 years ago is when I realized the birds were declining, and I started just opening up to invasive species and native ecosystems. And I've been working on this 1 acre truly for 7 years, and there's still a lot of work to do to just do everything I can to make it the most biodiverse ecosystem for the local wildlife. And it's like, it's my dream. And then naturally, with the woods being destroyed behind my house, it's like 200 acres, just like naturally, I'm like, bro, I need some land. I love the
Mm-mm.
preserve, but I needed just like something where I can kind of escape that seems, very pure, and I can kind of get away from this destruction. Also, I'm still living in my parents' house, so just have a space. So I was just entertaining the idea couple months, sitting with it. And then, searching Michigan property for sale. And I found this one property that really just stuck out immediately. I have not found before. It's 10 acres near Muskegon area. The description, like perfect wildlife habitat. It was very cheap. Well, not super cheap, but because you can't build on it. So, but that's exactly what I'm looking for. Just something to have like a village, a campsite, legendary. And I went up to it. I just knew. I just knew. I talked to some people around me for some opportunities, and honestly, I got 10 acres now, which I've not announced yet. I've kind of even been on a break in social media. The first video will be announcing that. And these 10 acres, it's a remnant of a oak pine barren. There's not one
Ooh.
invasive species on the property. It's very secluded, but it still needs a lot of work because just naturally, it hasn't had a fire in 30 years. So now, like, I'm cutting down a lot of pines, but like this place, I've been up there 2 times. It's just, well, actually 5 times, but spent the night 2 times over. Oh, it's unbelievable. And it seems like
Yeah.
just this whole new season of birding, of the videos, conservation, bringing people up, which we were talking about, because this is now an experience that I fully believe will change people's lives. It has nothing to do with me. It's the nature up there, because it's like, well, you're in the middle of nowhere. It's a gem. It's unbelievable. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot wait for both of you guys to go up. Like, it's
Oh, I'm
the
definitely
plans.
coming.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. And just for clarity, the first
Please.
property you're referring to is in South Bend, Indiana, correct?
Yep. It's at the
Okay.
house that I grew up in, and we have a 1 acre wooded lot that's basically I've just put everything into. There's
I'd
still a
love to
lot of
see
work
that
though.
one too. Actually,
Oh, please.
Will I assume you've been there probably in South Bend?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
been to the preserve, as
He
it's known.
has,
Yeah.
yes, and he has
What?
some
Yeah.
pure species from there as well, or saved from.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. The cool
Will
thing,
what?
but behind that lot, there was they're unfortunately they took down a bunch of really nice woods actually. But we had the chance to go through and we were like literally saving individual
Oh, yeah.
specimens to take and plant both in his yard. And I actually took some to put in my parents' backyard because it's too good of a spot to let all those
No.
plants go away.
Yeah.
But dude, I'm pumped to check out your spot near Muskegon because
Yes.
that's right at the latitude where the habitat type totally shifts.
Yep.
Basically all the way from the southeast all the way up to that area of Michigan, we have this kind of habitat type called the Virginian woodland, which is
Mm.
your hickories and your oaks, and of course inside of that there's a lot of diversity as well. But you get to that sort of distress zone where a lot of the habitat shifts to white pine, red pine, jack pine, low bush blueberry. The soil gets really acidic and sandy. So the habitat type is very different if you've never been that far north before.
Oh, it's so different, and that's what's so beautiful. It's like it's so distinct, and naturally, because it's basically white pine. There's a couple red pines. There's a wet sedge meadow that's about an acre that has some jack pines with some I know is going to be unbelievable species, but it's just red oak, white oak. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say. I think it's black oak and white oak. I'm waiting. It's really when they leaf out, but there is remnants of carpets of low bush blueberry, of huckleberry, and it's a dream. But there's a lot of work because naturally it's not seeing a fire, and there's 20 square feet with 50 white pines. They're just so close together, and I've been cutting them down, opening them up. But then there's some elders too, some massive white pines. Oh,
So grandfathers, that's awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
So exciting.
So from a bird point of view, the other cool thing about when you get into that geographical zone where you get the more piney sort of vibes is you start getting warblers breeding in a much higher species density. So that's where you start getting more black-throated green warblers breeding.
Mhm.
Blackburnian warblers can breed
Yep.
in that habitat type.
Magnolia, things
These
like
were my
that.
questions. Yes.
Johnny, how close is this to the lake shore? How many miles from Lake Michigan is this?
I don't know exact miles, but about 40 minutes, I would say.
Oh, it's inland a ways. Okay, so that'll
Yes.
limit
Yes.
you a little bit, but you're still going to capture some of those things, chestnut sideds,
Really? Oh, yeah.
magnolias that are a little more northerly
Pine
type
warbler as
species.
well. I would.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There was
Absolutely.
one
Oh, yeah.
species that I wanted to ask, not a question, but see if you guys can get it, because I never knew it did this pattern. is so I was sitting out there at night with my buddy. I've only been up there one other time with one other person, and we were sitting there, letting the darkness come. It's like the first night, you gotta embrace it all because it gets dark up there. It's very powerful. And he went over there, and there was one bird that I've seen there before, but it did a pattern. I'm gonna try and describe, and I'll see if you guys know what it is. It was like fluttering in the air. This is like when night came on, and it was making a weird, high pitched kind of sound. It was like hovering, basically almost like a ET. Like it was just floating. It was just flying in the sky. And it was just like, do you know what I'm talking about? I'm sure.
American
I know
woodcock.
what it is, but
Yeah, I'm thinking
sorry?
of American woodcock.
Woodcock.
Oh yeah. Oh, they were everywhere. It was just a show, just fluttering over the wetland. I'm like, oh my goodness, at night
Yeah.
too, not full
I'm gonna
night, as the night came on.
I'm going to share my screen here so we can show everybody the American. Oh, got an ad. Yeah, so talk about a cool bird. This is a very famous bird. Even there's a counterpart in Europe. Yeah, and they're famous for this extremely kind of intricate breeding display that they have. They're in the eastern U.S. and yeah, a very cool bird.
Yeah, that's a classic March bird up here. That's when they arrive real early, kind of in the forest interior. And I'd say it's a sure sign that you've got some early successional stuff nearby, unless they were just migrant birds and moving past. But I bet you they're breeding there. So you definitely, that'll mean you have some wetland and some kind of
absolutely
shrubby stuff as well.
Yeah.
They really
So
need all of that.
Because what's good where I'm at is I have two neighbors and there's property lines, but it's in the Manistee and I'm backed up against maybe 600 acres of national forest without a road. And then across the road, it's kind of close to where the White River is. You know, the White River?
Yeah.
Kind of where it goes through the Manistee, but it's south of that. And it's just like, so
I have
I'm excited.
surveyed the White River by kayak for breeding birds through large tracts of it. It's full of ceruleans and Louisiana water thrushes and a few prothonotarians even, which is really far north for them. But I mean, you're talking about a kind of world-class ecosystem up there. I mean, it is basically wilderness.
I'm so grateful.
Super
and I can't wait for like anybody who comes up because it's going to be a lot of intentions to, we're embracing every single bird that we see. Any bird that we hear, we're going to, you might not know the name. It's going to be like, this is a learning experience too for people to, hopefully it'll open their eyes to all nature, but especially birds. Because it's like, bro, if you're not bird watching, what are you doing? Like, my goodness. At least aware, right. It's little gems all over.
So does this mean you're going to cheer for the U of M and MSU instead of Notre Dame?
I don't know. I will say, it's funny, naturally, just real quick on that. It's like, love Notre Dame. Hey, I don't like Michigan. I don't like Michigan. It's just how it is naturally. I remember like 2 years ago, I'm like, wait, I love the state of Michigan. Like, why do I not like it? It was just funny, but it's Michigan's legendary.
It's also silly, isn't it? Our Ohio State colleagues, we probably fight over football, but we love each other. The bird programs in the two states are both awesome. So, all right, changing gears, Johnny, I have a question. I've been in conservation for, I don't even know, 25, 30 years, something like that now. I have this scenario where you bump into somebody from the public who doesn't know a lot about what you do or hardly anything about nature and conservation. And if they were to say to you, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of my time, and anything that you ask me to do for conservation, I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. What are the things you would ask them to do specifically? I have such a hard time answering this question.
Wow.
You'd think it would be really easy, but I think it's actually kind of difficult. So I was curious to see what.
No, it is. Yeah, it can be a difficult question. First, if I had 5 minutes, I would get to know where they are living. If they're at a house where they live, if it's an apartment, if they're at a house, it kind of changes the directory where the conversation would go. But let's say they're at a house. It's like, all right, you're going to change the way you live for the next, so you have this house, and say you have a beautiful front yard, backyard, side yard, whatever. The first I would enter in the conversation, what are you doing at your house? What's just a normal yearly looking like? Are you spraying? Are you putting fertilizer on the lawn? Are you cleaning up your leaves? Are you having any idea of trees you have on? Where are you at with understanding what your property is at your house? Okay. If they have no understanding, then it'd be well, that's the first start, is get to know what are the trees, the ecosystem historically, where did you live? That's the first entry of the conversation. Now then to go deeper is all right, if you're going to do something, first do that, and then start planting native plants. Start one, get familiar, do some work to find a local native nursery and start planting native plants, start learning about native plants, start understanding why native plants are important, start legitly doing research to make all of your choices now and what you're doing your yard to be aligned with helping the local native ecosystem, helping biodiversity. And what then that'll do, if you do that, is naturally you'll now just become aware and educated. And now the ignorance, there's no bliss anymore. You're going to drive and you're going to see the destruction everywhere. So then the next step is like, all right, let's start. You now have to start teaching people. You now have to start trying to get involved with your community of volunteering at local parks, like, because in becoming aware, and then just naturally just that's the work, and keep doing it, and that's the work. And then what that does for all these other little things of like how we can help the planet, how we can help the environment, I think they naturally just unfold when you open your eyes. I think that's just the start deeply. But sum it up, planting native plants and making choices where you live to help wildlife instead of just destroy the planet. And then try and hold others accountable as well, and just teach this. If you could do something for us, just do that. If that,
Dude, I think this is spot on. And I'm going to make an analogy, a birding analogy, actually. Sometimes we talk about spark birds where somebody is not a birder, they don't know anything about it, and they see a bird and something clicks and they're like, what on earth is that? That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it makes them go down this rabbit hole where it's almost like there's no other option for them to start caring about birds and birding, because it's like, what do you mean there's 900 species of birds in North America and I didn't even know that, and I could actually go see them all. Similarly, once you know the kind of damage that we've done to our local ecology, and once you have some sort of understanding of what we've lost, it's almost impossible not to make choices that help local ecology and help birds and help your pollinators. And again, to go all Jonny Nature on it, that heals yourself when you do heal the ecosystem, because it makes you feel like you're a puzzle piece that fits in, not like you're sticking out like a sore thumb anymore.
It's just so important. And I think naturally too, when you really just like, because there's just like with birds, there's so many species, there's so many plant species, and I think like there's a passion waiting to be awakened in so many people for the natural world. Because like once you start understanding, like you really see like, well, I actually can do a lot to make a difference for a lot of the wildlife around me. Like the little choices I make. And the thing is people want to help the planet, and they do beautiful things and they donate, and that's amazing. But like this, you can also see firsthand. You get to see firsthand the impact you're making. You get to feel it. You get to walk outside. You get to hear life. You get to see, goldfinch coming down, eating a seed from cut plant, like real, like the real way to help them. And it's just like, right. I know that like once this, like this is what's going to actually help the earth like change. It's nature, like it is the key to everything, and all this darkness and destruction that we're seeing just try and take over. Like nah, it's gotta be like we're at the crossroads. I don't Hopefully we're gonna save this planet. We're gonna see, because we gotta make a choice like now too, because they're coming after it.
One thing that really resonates with me in your answer is the local action and the connecting people's local actions to making a change at the broad scale. I always thought that's really hard to convince folks of, because sometimes it can feel like when you're only making a small change locally, you're not making a big difference. But the truth is, that's arguably the best place to make a difference. And then we can just scale it out to millions of people, and we're going to be looking a lot better. I mean, how many acres of lawn are there in the United States that could be transferred over to native ecosystems? How much?
It would change everything. I don't know the exact number, but it's, I think of one garden that I planted 2 years ago, which is just in suburbia, and it's just a small little, maybe 15 square feet that was just turf grass, and now it's going on to year 3, and it's just the most alive ecosystem. With just, you go there and there's 25 different species of plants. You can find so many bugs in this little pocket. Now the homeowners who had no idea about anything nature, they're resonating. Their kids now have a space that they can kind of explore, and it's this small little space. And like going through that just opens up, like, and then you just drive and you're like, well, the wasted space everywhere. I mean, for everything. I mean, like even just for gardens and feeding people, you could have like just in the cities, fruit trees everywhere. Like there's like the abundance is all around, but yet we're just sleeping, destroying, living in just destruction, but not aware. And I do believe once people become aware, for the most part, they will open their hearts and they will care and they will take action. And that's what I'm just trying to do. Just make videos, do the real work, healing firsthand, but also just get this word out. because it has to.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys probably, I know Johnny, you know Benjamin Vogt,
Yes.
the author of Prairie Up, and he's actually got a lot of books. But he talks a lot about the sort of sociological aspect of lawns in America
Mm.
and how they're almost used as a way to keep people down and keep people like confined in these little boxes. You have to have your lawn, you have to have it mowed, it has to look nice, it has to look pretty, and it's like, well, who's to say what looks nice and what
Yeah.
looks pretty? And I do agree that there's a certain point with a lot of native landscapers where it's like, whether or not you want to be an ambassador for this movement, if you're doing native landscaping in your yard where it's visible from the road, you are an ambassador. So it's like a compromise between providing the most you can for the ecosystem and also surviving in this world where it's not the norm, unfortunately, to plant native.
Yeah.
Um, and I like your aspect to this too, and the education of re-educating ourselves on what beauty is, because what we see is beautiful, a lot of people wouldn't find beautiful because you're raised on, well, this ecological desert is actually what's beautiful, and you're like, well, no, diversity is beautiful, ecological health is beautiful, migratory birds having a place to stop on their trip from Brazil all the way up to Alaska is beautiful. So
Yeah. No,
And I've
absolutely.
spoken with realtors about this, realtors who care about conservation. And when I ask them, what's it going to take to get the realty community to quit viewing the lawn as the only thing that adds property value? And the guy says basically drugs. That was his answer. So I think that the real sea change for this type of thing is going to come from the ground up, homeowner by homeowner by homeowner, which is why what you're doing, in our opinion, is so influential and so important. Who are your biggest role models? Like who's example of somebody
Wow.
that you might want to be like? You know, for me, it's Steve Irwin.
Yeah. I mean, when you think of a role model in this nature vibe, it kind of has to be Steve Irwin. And even like I'm feeling his inspiration right now, especially with there's that video of like money, and he's like, well, I don't care about, well, actually I love money because I'm going to use money to buy and protect wildlife habitat. And just like that energy, because getting this first property, it's a real inspiration to really be like, you know what, like I'm going to work really, really hard and do some big things to try and protect and get as much land as I can to protect. Because there's just something about being at that land and being like, no one is going to touch this. No one is going to destroy this. No one is going to do or make any choices above me that could harm this ecosystem. I have all say. And my say is just protecting this place to the day I die forever. That's like, hell, I want places like that all over the place. And really, this hopefully will just even become like a nonprofit, a movement of like, yo, like we're just protecting land. So I think just that video and just that moment, Steve Irwin is an inspiration. I would say, because I used to really love basketball. I still am a hooper, like damn near crazy, not gonna
Me
lie.
too. I play too. Yeah.
Let's go. And honestly, Kobe Bryant, a pure legend, a spirit that at that moment when I was just in that hooping mind pierced through where it's like, oh no, there's actually something deeper here. And I think he was a legend. Um, uh, I guess can't think of anybody right off the top, but
Very
um,
interesting.
yeah,
I wouldn't have thought of an athlete necessarily, but I see it. I mean, the
yes.
passion that guy is present in the moment and he's laser focused
Mm.
on the task at hand. And that I can definitely see that in you. Okay. Will worked for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the native plantings that you have done and maybe any
Yeah,
funny stories about him covering
no,
poison ivy?
absolutely.
Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, it sounds even weird hearing that Will worked for me. It was more he was just deeply helping me, and really, I think it was the first full year. So I had so obviously the work I've done at my preserve for like 7 years of just planting thousands of native plants and getting an understanding. And I'm grateful that I had a native lady in which I've learned a lot from, and she was already really in the world of just planting gardens for people, and it kind of just opened that portal. And then naturally 3 years ago I had just people around me. I was like, hey, I want some plants, my brother, my family. And it was fun to think what Will was talking about, because when I planted here, it was always this intention, like I'm just planting species. And then when I thought, oh, well, okay, I'm going to plant native plants in the front yard of my brother's house, who doesn't really understand, but he wants natives. Like, all right, I kind of have to have some deeper thought behind this. And this kind of opened then the space of like, all right, well, a design like, well, what plants actually will this really work well and look really good and provide full ecosystem function. And so I started planting gardens there, and then opportunities opened up. And then I'm close to the Indiana Dunes, and my cousin lives in the Indiana Dunes, and he wanted a native garden. He wanted to support me, and I planted a native garden there. And luckily, in this community at the Indiana Dunes, they're very kind of, everyone knows each other. And if you're living in one of the top most biodiverse national parks in the country, hopefully if you're living directly in it, you have naturally more of an understanding, and they for the most part do. So luckily I met 5 homeowners in the span of a month who were eager to want me to plant gardens, and really that's where that work began. But there was one homeowner in particular in which I'm really grateful for, as they have this beautiful house. It's this front uh, property right on the lake with a beautiful dune, and it's amazing. But when I went there, it's like, oh my goodness, this place is being absolutely overrun by probably one of the greatest threats, Oriental bittersweet, which is just relentless, absolutely
Yep.
relentless. And these people,
Yep.
they care, but they're just almost like, we don't even know what to do. So it was beautiful to meet them. And honestly, I worked maybe 6 weeks just removing the invasives on this dune and in their property. And then where Will really came in that following spring, that was in the fall, that next upcoming spring, we planted legitly probably about 3,500 plugs. Would you say, Will? Is around, I mean, 3,000 or whatever total.
Yeah.
And that was truly an amazing experience. Naturally, I'm going back there, still doing work. And this year, because I got the land, I'm still doing projects, but I'm also having an intention of like, let me just go over really the projects and plantings I did last year and just make sure they're good. Because now I really care. And Will, just to tell you, I went, bro, all the plantings like crazy. Charles' house is really like every plug it just took, and damn near is like really growing happy.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
always so good to hear. Some of this
yeah.
stuff, especially with the dunes, is it's sand. It's all
Hmm.
sand.
Yeah,
So you try to put species in that like that well-drained soil and are from, historically kind of sand dune habitats. But at the end of the day, we don't know 100% if it's going to work. So it's really good to
yeah,
hear that it's going to
yeah.
work.
Oh yeah.
One thing, one thing I remember about working in the dunes with you is the poison ivy there is terrible. It's all over the place. So I was always jeans, long sleeves, gloves. I would not let that stuff touch my skin for anything. And here's Johnny walking around in basketball shorts and barefoot, sticking his hand right in poison ivy, yanking it out and putting the. You're a maniac, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I've got it, but sometimes as long as I just really wash off after, for the most part, I'm good. But
Ironically, a lot of the insectivores that we think of insectivores, like myrtle warbler, yellow-rumped warbler, for example, the way that they can actually survive in Michigan through the winter is typically actually by eating the berries from poison ivy. It's actually arguably a
wow,
keystone species for a lot
wow.
of birds that spend the winter in Michigan.
Yeah.
Because I think that fruit is really fatty, and it's
Mm.
kind of the species is kind of ubiquitous. So yeah,
Yeah.
yellow-bellied sapsuckers that winter in
Uh-huh.
Michigan. That's pretty much the only thing they eat all winter.
Yeah, I never knew that, and I have one area on my property where it does berry, and it's toxic, but man, it can be beautiful. Like the fall color of poison ivy, and like you said, the
Oh,
berries. So it is beneficial. But yeah, and when it's in the right area, of course.
Yeah, that's one of the only natives I won't begrudge anybody for taking it out of their yard. If you can
Respect.
leave it
Yeah.
though, it does have a
Yeah.
high ecosystem
Yeah.
value for sure.
Especially when
yeah.
it's high up in the trees, it's not touching anybody. Maybe it's on a snag. That's where it can thrive.
Johnny, as a successful influencer, what do you find to be the most compelling argument or arguments about why people should care about wildlife?
That's a good question. Well, one, just the main point that if you care about life on Earth for yourself, you should start caring about wildlife and the ecosystems. But at the deeper level, it's like it's also a part of you. Like we're a part. A deer is not separate from nature. Like it is. It's just part of the ecosystem, and so are we. And I think just opening your heart and caring for the beauty of life all around you, that's just everywhere, and caring for the well-being and feeding that light, which will also just help your life, because a thriving world and native ecosystems with biodiversity and security, it's only going to be a thriving world for you as well. So I think just that full circle, and then just deeply caring, just opening your heart and seeing the love all around you, the beauty of life. I mean, literally, people, they have a deep connection, you could say, with God, and they love everything about it, but yet an expression of God in many ways, even in some views, a creation, sure, it's right in front of you, and hell, you don't even acknowledge it. You have no understanding. You're destroying it. You're disrespecting it. So I think just opening your eyes there and seeing that as well, and just seeing the beauty in it, it's just, there's really no need to even try and explain it more. It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
It's right there. Look how beautiful it is.
Yeah, that really resonates with me.
Yeah.
The modern era makes life arguably harder for people nowadays, and I think your guys' generation and Gen Z coming up behind you have challenges that we don't have, and things are more disconnected than ever. And I think I've always thought that birding in particular is especially good at getting you out into nature and kind of plugging deeply into the universe. That's how I always talk about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Of course.
It's like it makes you feel zen and happy on the inside, but you don't realize it when it was happening. But then all of a sudden you're like, this is really like makes me feel happy and connected.
Yes.
And it's like you're talking about doing this in your own yard and having the bigger picture of connecting migrant birds that are moving great distances, and they're going to stop where there was only a lawn. Like, I think people would be surprised that they would even stop in a place like this, but they do, don't they?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I think it kind of goes back to like Aldo Leopold, Sand County Almanac, writing about phenology, and like February comes around, that first warm day, and the spring peepers and the chorus frogs start making noise, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're back. And seeing just these waves of cycles of things that happen year after year after year. The trout lily coming up, the yellow-rumped warbler's coming back in. There's a pine warbler singing in the treetop. He's not stopping there. He's going to go find some pines, but it's that time of year where they come right through. It's something, just these waves of phenology that situate you at a place in time and in space. That's what I love about birds, birding, and understanding native ecosystems.
It's so beautiful. I mean, it's just pure magic. I mean, it's the truth. It's like, it's real life. It's the living world that's been here for as long as this has been here, and it's just Mother Earth. It's like, my goodness, we have to have a connection. If not, you're gonna feel so lost, and you won't even recognize it. Like, it'll just be like, you just think it's normal until you get back. You're like, oh, I remember now. Like, I'm part of something bigger. Like, I'm not just in the conditioned matriarchal mind of thinking I'm separate from everything and it's just me out here. It's like, oh, it's much bigger, my friend. And nature is a reminder of like, oh, this is all connected.
Well, and dude, especially to go with what Caleb was saying, Gen Z is the most anxious, the most depressed, and the most addicted generation that we've ever known in modern history of humans. Yeah. And I just, a contributing factor of that is that we are not connected with ecosystems that we have been living with since we were literally apes on the savanna of Central Africa. You know what I mean? We have, for our entire existence, been aware of these relationships and had these relationships, and all of a sudden we're getting cut off. And within 200 years of the Industrial Revolution, here we are, depressed, anxious, over addicted to our phones and drugs. I think that this is a huge solution to a lot of the problems that we're facing as a society, really.
Yeah, it is. It is the solution. And it's crazy. It is just a short amount of time, like 200 years. Like, we went back, like even the indigenous, the connection, the ceremonies, the moments they would have on the land. It's like, and yet it's just nothing now, not even any connect. I have friends who they've never even been out in nature. There's kids who never even went outside, and it's all on the phone. But yet on the other side of it, I do believe there's people just finding that connection. It's like, holy moly, it's growing strong, and it is growing. But yeah, that the phone is powerful.
It can be powerful in both directions.
Yes,
I think about kids that grow up in the inner city and don't even have access to even greenways, let alone a native meadow or anything like this. Heard a magical story you guys are going to kick out of. A buddy of mine was working over on Lake Michigan here, and he had a group of inner city Grand Rapids, Michigan children that came out to the lake for the first time in their life. And he got to walk them over the crest of the hill when they could see Lake Michigan for the first time in their life. And it was like a religious experience. The kids were so excited. People were crying and running down the water. And I'm thinking, that's where it's at. That's really where it's at. We got to get as many people as we can to have an experience like that. And if birds is part of it, that's a great thing.
Oh yeah. No, it's what's going to change the world, because once you have millions of people like finding that connection and excited about it and want to bring nature back to their yard, to their city, to their neighborhood, like it's just an overwhelming energy. And like the work and the change we can make within a year, 2 years, like it's going to change everything. It really will. Like it is nature, and it's exciting. It's powerful, but I have trust in humanity. We'll see what we do, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to make it work. But it has
Yeah,
to be nature.
it's why I so appreciate what you do, Johnny, in your social media influencing. We're talking about like people being addicted to their phones, and it's like we've got to find a way to use these things as a force for good. And you can buy as much land as you want, but if you influence 100,000 people to also protect land or convert their land into like scale
Yeah.
is where you make a difference. And dude, like
Yeah.
you're doing it. You're doing
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Killing it. And
I mean,
pollinators, we haven't even talked about pollinators, right? As that role of the that piece of the puzzle for what you're doing.
I mean, it's everything. You know, people ask, well, why native plants? I mean, almost just to sum it up, kind of, is it's like, well, all plants are just naturally poisonous. And just over time, our insects, which are arguably one of the most important along with the plants, they set the stage for all life to exist, for all birds, for anything, for us to exist. That relationship between the plants and the insects, and our native plants have evolved with the insects, where certain plants, as we know, are very specific to a certain insect, and we start cutting off those chains, and then the insect population starts declining, the pollinators, then everything starts declining. It's like Jenga. You know, you really just start removing these blocks within the full structure, the whole thing is going to collapse. So when I drive to 20 minutes down the road, and I really don't see many native plants. I don't see cardinal flower just blooming all over the place, and blue lobelia and sweet Joe pie weeds, and it's just all plants that offer nothing, that are ecological dead end. And then with the pollinators, so like when you really just start connecting it everywhere, it's just like, oh my goodness, it is the plants. They set the foundation, they set the stage, and yeah, because our pollinators, they need help right now. Because there's a lot of specialty pollinators out there as well. We have, you know, the exact number of native bees we have, Will?
Probably
It's crazy.
hundreds or
Oh yeah,
thousands across the entire
Isn't it
continent.
5,000? I thought it was
yeah,
5,000 species.
yeah. I think that's yeah.
You're
When
good.
I'm in my preserve and it's in the woodland, and I have a lot of spring ephemerals in there, and really like I'm observing, I'm seeing just bees and pollinators that I have no idea what the species is. Like I've just never seen it in my life, and it's just incredible to show the diversity, and that, man, nature truly, like, they're the real warriors. Like the birds, like what they go through to just survive and
Oh yeah.
exist and still try and maneuver this just changing world. Like, oh, it's so much respect.
Yeah, I that resonates so strongly with me. They are some of the most resilient critters you are ever going to come across. And I had a friend of mine who actually said something along those lines one day. That for him, one of the reasons he loves birding so much is that the birds symbolize something to strive for, to be as tough and resilient in your own life as they are, and
Wow.
to arguably even greater challenges, arguably, than what humans are going through. I mean, it's life and death for
Wow.
them every day, and
I
yet
love
they
that. Yeah,
just
that's amazing.
keep pushing forward. You know, it's super inspiring, as is all the work that you've done. Johnny, if people want to find you, do you have any other places that they should look, or any other topics that we should hit before we wrap?
Well, just say if they want to find me, it's at Jonny Nature, Jonny Nature, on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And then, you know, if you feel called, and my DMs truly are actually always open. I do respond to a lot of people, just a conversation about birds, plants. Like I'm always open to that. And because, you know, it's also, I am almost being called to like trying to form even a community of some sort in some way, where like, you know, it's just a community of people. We're throwing ideas off. We just know like, hey, we're in this, and we're building for the future to heal this planet. So be on the lookout for that as well. And it's interesting. It's kind of off topic, but for the first time ever, I haven't posted in like a month, and it's actually been amazing because it's like just a nice rest. And then when I come back, I'm going to talk about the first post will be about the land. So I don't know if this will come out before that post, but that'll be kind of cool too.
We'll be looking forward to that post. Yeah, we're probably going to
Yeah.
publish this on Friday. So
Let's go.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, hopefully this one definitely gets out there at some level, because I haven't said much, but I will be definitely promoting this.
This is
Well,
the
oh,
scoop.
appreciate it, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Johnny, thanks for coming on. You do a lot of incredible work. When we plant native plants, we have happy birds.
And when we have happy birds, we have happy people.
We have a beautiful world for all. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on
All right.
with us and everybody. We look forward to seeing you next week. Peace.